just start the intro again. Before we get into today's topic, I want to speak directly to my American viewers. Today is Veterans Day in the United States, and to everyone who has served in the United States Armed Forces, Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines, Coast Guard, and Space Force, thank you. Your service matters. Your sacrifice matters. You wrote a blank check payable to the United States of America for an amount up to and including your life. Whether you served in combat or in support roles, whether stateside or deployed overseas, whether in war or in peace, you answered the call when your country needed you. That deserves our deepest gratitude. Thank you. But today, I need to say something uncomfortable. So, in commonwealth countries, and so what do we mean by that? So Canada, the United Kingdom, Australia, New Zealand, and a number of others probably follow the same holiday format. This day of November 11th, it overlaps with U.S. Veterans Day. It's after World War I, it was called Armistice Day, and then in the Commonwealth countries, it's known as Remembrance Day, and it is the primary holiday in these Commonwealth countries to honor the war dead. So, two of my granduncles lied about their age. I mean, it was kind of one of these open things that people did it. The government turned a blind eye during World War II. And they were 14 years old, and they lied about their age, said they were 16. And they served as sailors in the Royal Canadian Navy, open bridge ships, hunting U-boats, escorting convoys, and, sea spray so cold that, it freeze on just sheets of ice on the tops of the ships. And it's, if you've ever taken a tour on one of these era open bridge corvettes, you'll see it would not have been a comfortable trip across the Atlantic. And so they did that. My grandfather served as a tail gunner on Lancasters, and he was a Canadian Air Force sergeant, but I believe he flew with the RAF rather than the RCAF. And my father served in the RCAF, and I served 9 years in the Royal Canadian Navy in a number of different roles, finishing in personnel selection, starting in naval surface warfare. So as a kid and as a young man, I viewed military service as one of the most noble professions, and that hasn't changed. But I'm disgusted and horrified that the cost of life and treasure spent in World War I, and especially in World War II, was spent in vain for these Commonwealth countries, and is a warning sign for those of us who are American. Given what Canada, the UK, France, and other Western countries have done with the freedom that these heroes purchased with their blood. So we share across various nations the symbol of the poppy, And the reason why the poppy is a symbol of remembrance is that in the fields of Belgium, World War One, where a lot of servicemen of all our allied countries were buried, there naturally grows these poppies. And there's a custom in Commonwealth countries that the red poppy is worn on the, you can buy them at stores or donate to the Legion and that kind of thing, acquire them. And the red poppy is a custom that's still followed in England and Canada, I'm sure Australia and New Zealand. 2 minutes of silence at the 11th hour of the 11th day of the 11th month. And the ceremonies at cenotaphs in every town across Canada and Britain and Australia and New Zealand. And growing up, that was always part of November 11th. What would happen is it would always be a local parade, typically all the retired veterans. And I'm old enough that I remember when, their numbers were fairly large. And of course, now most of those veterans are like 100 years old. But, I'm in my 50s. So when I was young, of course, there were a lot of them still alive. And there would be in every small town, typically a cenotaph, basically a large grave marker honoring with normally the symbols of the various armed services, or if there was a local regiment, like a militia regiment, and the names of all the deceased that belonged to the town that were killed in battle. And so we would march down to that cenotaph. The veterans would march, the Legion would march. Typically, the police would be represented, the various cadet movements, the Army cadets, the Sea Cadets, the Air Cadets, Boy Scouts, any kind of civil organization would march in a parade to the cenotaph, and prayers would be offered by one of the local clergy. If you had a military chaplain, then the military chaplain or retired military chaplain, they would normally do that. But if not, it was just a rotating thing with the local clergy. And my point is, every town had one of these, and it was a town ritual. And I know that they still continue it in many towns, but I suspect that the numbers that actually gather are probably a lot fewer than when I grew up. And these things are rituals of our memory, and it's kind of a nice little cultural tradition to have. There's a poem that every Canadian knows, or used to. I don't know what they teach the kids anymore. But back in the days when we had two genders, this was a poem that every Canadian knows. And yes, I'm being a turkey. It was written by a Canadian officer named McCrae, Lieutenant Colonel John McCrae. And although I think he was a captain at the time he wrote the poem. And he was a medical officer. He wrote this in 1915, and sometimes you occasionally see this poem reproduced for the US as well, but it's of Canadian origin. In Flanders fields the poppies blow, between the crosses row on row, that mark our place, and in the sky the larks, still bravely singing, fly, scarce heard amid the guns below. We are the dead. Short days ago we lived, felt dawn, saw sunset glow. Loved and were loved, and now we lie in Flanders fields. Take up our quarrel with the foe, to you from failing hands we throw the torch, be yours to hold it high. If ye break faith with us who die, we shall not sleep, though poppies grow in Flanders fields. We have broken faith. The Commonwealth countries have broken faith. We were an inch of losing everything in the United States of America if we had chosen a leftist government. And the thing is, you see, I know what some of you are thinking, that, hey, Bishop, they fought for our freedom, they fought for democracy, they fought against tyranny. And of course, we all agree on that, but what did those words mean to them? What did they mean to them? What was their concept of God? What was their concept of worship? What was their concept of church? The whole world has gone topsy-turvy. Like I say, you have a Supreme Court justice that doesn't even know what a woman is. That's the world we live in. That's our reality, whether we like it or not. Not the world I grew up in, not the world Felix grew up in, not the world most of our viewers have grown up in. What do we do with it? The men that died at Vimy Ridge, at Dieppe, on Juno Beach, on the other beaches of Normandy, in the Battle of Britain, in the Battle of Atlantic, in the Japanese theater, they weren't fighting for an abstract concept called liberal democracy. They were fighting for a specific inheritance derived from our various countries. And whether you're Canadian or American or British or Australian, we are part of the Anglosphere. We share a lot of common culture, a lot of common values, a lot of common conceptions of who our God is. They fought for the Christian understanding that human beings are made in the image of God, and that our nations are supposed to reflect, in order that would be pleasing to God. They fought for the belief that truth exists and can be known, not manufactured by whomever holds power. They fought for justice, rooted in transcendent moral law, not the whims of the day or of bureaucrats. They fought for freedom, ordered towards the good, not the kind of freedom of do what you wilt that people define it as today. It's the freedom to do good, not the freedom to do whatever you want. They fought for the right to speak the truth without fear of arrest. They fought for the freedom of speech, the freedom of association, things that we often take for granted, the freedom to have a livelihood without being, oppressed by those in power. They fought for the right to worship God according to their conscience. They fought for the right to raise their children in the faith of their ancestors without state interference. They fought for equal justice under the law, the same rules for everyone, not the two-tier system that most Western countries have today. They fought believing that they were securing a future for their children, which they still believed in, a world worth bringing children into. So let me ask you, what would those men think if they could see most of the Western countries today? Let me start with something that is both symbolic and deeply personal. When I first was a seminarian, I had sort of a minor seminary program in a way, kind of an informal one. I lived with a bunch of priests in a rectory and in a very poor area town, and it was an excellent experience to live in an area. I never lived in sort of a poor, dangerous neighborhood before, so it was kind of a good experience. And taught me a lot of things just about, again, a side of the world I hadn't known as a very young person. And one day I walked into I had a habit, there was the pastor of this, the rector of the rectory. There was all these retired priests that lived there too, which were a great source of knowledge and stuff. But the pastor was also the head honcho there, of course. And he and I had a friendship, and I forget what time it was, something like 7:30 at night or whatever, Jeopardy would be on. And I would go in every night and I'd spend a half hour, and I had my little chair and he had his chair, and we'd spend a little time every evening, and I'd hear about what went on in the church that day and the like. And I was working full time and going to school full time, and whatever extra time I had left was for the parish. So the thing is that little break though was something I did at least 5 days a week with him. And one day I came in and there was someone in my chair. Turned out it was a lieutenant colonel, Canadian Army chaplain in charge of all the chaplains of the Army. And we hit it off, and he offered me a job, and I was still finishing up my last year of pre-seminary. And I said, well, I'm not trained or anything. He said, that's okay. It's a trained position. Why don't you go into it? So I did. And when I did, I'm going to show you something here. So here, wrong one. Yeah. So this is just an AI created thing with the soldier with the torch. And this is what, unfortunately, a lot of Canada has become. It's all indifference. It's all just coexist. It's all pensionable time, man. And you can't see it under the text there, but the gentleman's holding a bong. So it's just sort of fitting. But I wanted to show you this. So when I first worked with chaplaincy services, on the left-hand side of your screen, you see what the badge used to be. So it's a Maltese cross, and you have, and the motto is the vision that Constantine saw. And then the round circle, sort of the wreath, is made of little maple leaves. And of course, the crown was under Queen Elizabeth II. So in hoc signos vinces, under this sign, we shall conquer. So they went from that, because it offended Muslims and other groups, they went from the cross to the tree, called to serve, versus under the sign, we shall conquer. And, well, it is what it is. But that didn't come until later. But the thing is, the message of that original motto, which, by the way, was the Canadian chaplaincy's badge for, I think, since World War I. Someone can fact check me if I'm wrong. The message was clear that Canada's military heritage was inseparable from the Christian faith of those who served. In 2006, they actually, I didn't have that picture, but in 2006, it was an interim step. They got rid of the unified Christian symbol, and now there were three badges. They kept one of them, the Maltese cross for Christians, a Star of David for Jews, and a crescent for Muslims. And the retreat started to begin. So I'm pretty sure we didn't actually have, there wasn't a large Jewish component in the Canadian Forces. I certainly don't begrudge them a chaplain, but it was just sort of odd, because I think the only ones they had in my era were like reservists, because there just wasn't a demand. And the only time there would be, I imagine, would be a military funeral with a Jewish officiant. And likewise, Islam was not a significant component during my original exposure to the Canadian military. And boy, has that changed a lot, right? Because by 2006, that was the beginning of the end. And then 2011, the Canadian Forces adopted that tree of life. And basically, they replaced the Christian God with the great architect, the false god of syncretism, which replaced the God of Abraham and Athanasius. And it's just bizarre. So then, you can't make this stuff up. In 2023, the chaplain general at the time, whose name was Brigadier General Guy Bazile, issued a directive. Military chaplains are now prohibited from using the words God, Heavenly Father, or prayer at official ceremonies, including Remembrance Day. They must deliver spiritual reflections that are inclusive in nature and avoid faith-specific and exclusive language. And this explicitly includes not mentioning the holy name of our Lord Jesus. And I have to point out, what did our Lord say about he who denies him, right? So let me be clear about what this means. Canadian military chaplains, many of them Christian ministers and Catholic priests, are forbidden to invoke the name of Jesus when honoring men who died believing they fought for Christian civilization. They cannot recite scripture at a military funeral. They cannot offer Trinitarian prayers at a Remembrance Day ceremony. They must deliver vapid therapeutic reflections on Canadian values. I mean, what the heck is that? And a search for meaning and belonging. What? I mean, this is like the equivalent of drinking a gallon of Pepto-Bismol. This is ridiculous. And the Canadian values, what? Unaliving the unborn and killing the older people? The official rationale? State neutrality. Meanwhile, who did all these men die under? The symbol of the cross, And the fact that 39% of Canadian Armed Forces members, according to a recent survey, now claim no religious affiliation. So they're like, well, chaplains, we don't want to be imposing our religion on anybody else. In other words, because some Canadians have apostatized from the faith of their fathers and their other ancestors, those who remain must be silenced. This is not neutrality. This is the active suppression of Christianity in favor of a new state religion. The men who fell at Flanders Fields, at Vimy Ridge, on Juno Beach, they were men of faith. Their commanders invoked God's blessing. Their chaplains prayed in the holy name of Jesus. to forbid their spiritual descendants from naming Christ in their memorials is not inclusion, it's erasure. It's a spiritual, I don't know if I'm allowed to say the word, Felix, but genocide. It's
okay.
it, right? It is a lie about who these men were and what they believed they died for. And this isn't just about Canada. This is a pattern across the entire Western world. I won't replay all the tapes, but there's at least 3 clips going on right now. You check Benny Johnson, and you check any one of the major British news, like Paul Watson or the like, you will see the clips of the last remaining 100-year-old veterans from World War II telling us that everything that they did was a wasted sacrifice. It was a wasted sacrifice. Even a fellow down here in Florida says the same thing. What has it all become? This is not what we fought to preserve. And we are so far away from the values of our ancestors. And some people get defensive and all upset and whatever. No, you know what? Like when the British newscasters dealt with this guy, they were treating him like he was a kindergarten child. Oh, we're so sorry you feel that way. Oh, don't feel that way. We're so grateful for you. Are you really? When was the last time you had your rump in church there, missus? When was the last time you cared about the pensioners being arrested in Britain for posting something on Facebook that the Politburo didn't like? When was the last time you stood in defense of somebody being harassed, some young girl being harassed on a bus full of newcomers? It's ridiculous. We win all these wars just to be conquered from the inside, to have our own children and nephews and nieces spit on the Holy Cross, and we let it happen. We allowed them to convince us that, oh, the absence of God is neutrality. You don't want to put your religion on anybody. How about asking what's true? How about that as a starting point? It's ridiculous. Even if you're a secular person and you're not a formal believer, the framework of Christianity is the framework of the West. And you cannot delete that heritage without destroying everything else. If you think you can be an atheist, and by the way, there's lots of smart atheists who understand this, smart unbelievers who are not officially Christian, who are nonetheless very pro-Christian. Why? Because although they don't have the assent of faith, they understand that without Christianity, the West will fall. That everything that we take for granted is gone because we traded the true God for the coexist sticker, the sentiment of the coexist sticker, sold to us with goods. Like, of course we want friendship with other groups and non-believers. Of course we do. I don't want to stuff my faith down anyone's throat. I want to be able to make my case, and truth needs no lie to defend it, and truth needs no threat to spread it. The truth is its own fulfilled argument. And the churches will be full if the message wasn't suppressed. Why? Because it's the only thing that's true. The other false gods of humanism and these other false religions leave people empty. And so the thing is that the chaplaincy surrender of Canada means something to the United States and the other countries. You know why? Because this spiritual betrayal plays out in other ways. Western governments now operate according to what has been called anarcho-tyranny. And that's when the state simultaneously fails to protect citizens from crime while harassing them for political incorrectness. So in other words, they're very particular about what laws they enforce and who they enforce them on. And they use the law, they weaponize the law to go after their political opponents. In 2022, some Americans know this. I want you to know this because this is important. Canada's like a canary in the coal mine for the United States. So it's important that you know what's happens there. In 2022, Tamara Lynch, or I'm pronouncing her name wrong, Leash, and Chris Barber organized a peaceful protest in Ottawa against the plague mandates. It's known as the Canadian Trucker Convoy. Most Americans have heard about it because it was also an American. They thought, it was a good idea, so it was going to organize in the U.S. too. But most of the restrictions were lifted, I think, before it got sort of on the go. So families, bouncy castles for the kids. And the worst thing that happened was a little bit of traffic disruption and some noise. But the Canadian government invoked the same law they do as if there was an outright rebellion, the Emergencies Act. For the first time in history, this act was there was another law that was enacted when there was a during a period of time there was a terrorist attack in Quebec. A politician and other fellow was kidnapped, and they invoked martial law back then. But this is the only time under the new law it was ever enacted. And police arrested organizers. Bank accounts were frozen without even court order. They just did it. Well, and Canada has a constitution very similar to the U.S., just not a Second Amendment, and there's not really a guarantee of free speech. But pretty well all the other rules exist, including due process and that kind of thing. So, under what authority were these bank accounts frozen? Under what authority was basically a variant of martial law declared? And later, the Supreme Court found that the law had been improperly used, but no one paid any consequence for it. The people that signed off on it should be serving some sort of penalty. They should be depensioned or go to jail for a period of time. But of course, if you're powerful enough, there's never any consequences. Laws are only for the little people like you watching this. And that's the problem. It's an injustice, and God sees it. And so the thing is that the Crown prosecutors for these two organizers, not only do they want to cut up the guy's truck, he gave it to his son, but they wanted to confiscate it and cut it up because it was a symbol that upset them. Crown prosecutors, which is in the U.S., it's like from the DA's office. They sought 7 to 8 years in prison for presiding over some bouncy castles and some signs on the side of the road. There was no violence. There was no, like I say, at most there was some disruption of traffic. And they wanted to give them 7 to 8 years in prison for a peaceful protest. Now, the thing is, at the very same time, and again, you can look this up if it's of interest. It's a heartbreak of a story. But some newcomers, I guess we'll call them, got into a car, and they were driving around like idiots, and they ran over some poor person. And while this poor man was screaming, they just dragged him to the street till he's dead under the car. And they got 3 years, I believe it was. So the person who looks like me gets 8 years for causing mischief and for a peaceful protest. And the person that has, no connection to the country other than they just arrived, they can do whatever they want, and they get 3 years. Basically, they killed a man, and not only did they kill him, not only did they kill him, they killed him in one of the most horrific ways that you can imagine dying. Basically, pieces of him on the road, and there's no outrage. There's no demands from the church or even conservative groups to say enough. This is a gross injustice. And so in the case of the protesters, they got, basically a reduced sentence or something, but that's not the point. The point was the Crown was going to ask. This was hanging over these people for years, that they might have to go to prison for 8 years for honking a truck horn. And someone can kill another and get 3? Like, seriously, why do they even bother with police and judges up there? It's ridiculous. And so the thing is, in the United Kingdom, this is another thing. In the UK, they make approximately 12,000 arrests per year, 30 per day, for social media posts that offend newcomers. So pensioners, a mom of 2 young kids, she got nearly 3 years. Actually, I think J.D. Vance got involved in that one. She got out. And, there's a lady named Alison Pearson, for example. She was a journalist. The police were at her door for a single tweet. Two parents arrested by 8 officers, detained 6 hours for a private WhatsApp message. A fellow named Peter Tatchell, who was a human rights campaigner, arrested for holding a sign criticizing Hamas. Graham Lynch, a comedy writer, arrested for expressing gender-critical views on Twitter. Darren Brady, British Army veteran, arrested for resharing a meme. His crime? It caused anxiety. Oh, give me a break. Meanwhile, in the UK, 90% of all crime goes unsolved. 89% of violent and sexual offenses go unsolved. Knife attacks, acid attacks, rape gangs, including piles, over 100,000 allegedly. Little children preyed upon by newcomers. Violent assaults. Police have no resources. How can they? They're too busy arresting pensioners for a Facebook post that gets them upset. And Canada is racing to follow Britain's example with a bill called C-63, the Online Harms Act. So by using vague definitions, again, they always sell us as a positive, as safety, as something good for the kids. With vague definitions of hate speech, anonymous complaints, rat on your neighbor, retroactive prosecution for things you said years ago. Given what we've seen, their abuse of the Emergencies Act against peaceful protesters, and by the way, you can watch this. You go on YouTube and you search for RCMP tramples protester. They took a horse. I actually was Ottawa Police. It wasn't RCMP. My apologies there. But the police trampled a disabled woman at this protest with a horse. And I'm pro-police, folks, but I'm certainly not pro-Ottawa Police. They should all be depensioned. As far as anybody involved in that protest, enforcing that protest stuff, should be depensioned if it was up to me. I don't want to see them in jail. I want to see their pension gone. They do not deserve a single cent from the Canadian people. And you know what? Saying I was just following orders is no bleeping excuse. So the thing is, there's a pattern that's clear. The state reserves its harshest judgment for peaceful dissent against their own narrative. Like the previous regime, they tried to enact in the United States, they tried to enact a ministry of truth. They called it something else. Maybe Felix remembers the name. It's all been declassified now. Traditional Catholics were on watch lists. This is not
right. I can't think of the name.
This was not equal justice under the law that our grandfathers thought they were defending. And so, we've really broken faith with this previous generation. And perhaps the most damning evidence that we have broken this faith is we don't replace ourselves. Do you know that Canada's fertility rate in 2024 is 1.25? So the replacement rate is 2.1. The U.S. is a little bit below 2.1, but it's actually one of the best in the West. And basically, Canada's been below replacement rate since 1972, and it's now hit the lowest rate in its recorded history. In British Columbia, Canada's most progressive province, the fertility rate is 1.02. So Canada now ranks amongst the world's ultra-low fertility nation. Do you see why they're welcoming all these newcomers? Who's going to pay for all the taxes, right? They're deindustrializing and they're importing. Fertility, it's more than just, well, do you like kids or not? Fertility is a measure of a society's hope. And when it plummets, that means the people have lost faith in themselves, in their society, in the future. And a fertility rate like we see here, it's just not sustainable. All baby boomers will reach retirement age by 2030. A massive generation is retiring, and there'll be radically fewer workers to support them. The economic promises made to retirees cannot be kept. The social programs cannot be funded. The debt cannot be serviced. So there's going to be a reset of one sort form or another. I think President Trump and the Treasury Secretary in the U.S., they have a plan. I don't know if they're going to pull it off, but they have a plan. At least someone's doing something, because I don't see any of the other Western countries doing anything. They just lie to their people, promise them more stuff, print more money. What do you think happens? It'll end up with empty shelves and unaffordable food that is on the shelves. And thank goodness that we didn't take that path in the U.S., or at least we could. I mean, New York did. So I don't know. It goes deeper than economics. A civilization that does not reproduce itself is a civilization that's lost faith in its own future. They no longer believe life is good, that children are a blessing, that the world that they would pass on to their descendants is worth inhabiting. Oh, but as long as they recycle, as long as the polar bear can float by on the iceberg, they don't care about humans. The men who died at Flanders, Passchendaele, they believed in the future. They believed their sacrifice would secure a world worth living in for their children and grandchildren. What would they think of a society that has chosen sterility, that has replaced marriage and the family with careerism and consumption, that has traded the permanent things for pleasures of the moment, for hedonism? We have taken the world that they won for us at such terrible cost and turned it into a retirement home with no heirs. And that is perhaps the ultimate betrayal. Now, some of you are watching this and thinking, okay, Bishop, these are all political issues. Some of this is conservative. Some of it's just policy disagreement. No. What we're witnessing is not Democrat versus Republican or liberal versus conservative or left versus right. Not in the usual partisan sense. We are witnessing the collapse of the anthropological and metaphysical foundations that make free societies possible. And I got to tell you something, the big churches are all in on it. Look at their stuff. You know, you get, for every one good thing that comes out of them that's pro-family, there's another like 9 that are pro-UNWEF Borg. And the thing is that the men who died in those world wars were not defending liberal democracy in the abstract. They were defending a particular civilizational inheritance, like that Christianity was a part of, that was at least in the back of their head. The Christian understanding that human beings are made in the image of God. That's what we're talking about. That truth exists and can be known. That justice is rooted in transcendent moral law. Not the will of the powerful or the person that controls the newsreader, that they all these different channels reading the exact same news all at the same time, the propaganda. You can cut with a knife. All these poor people programmed. NPCs, soulless. And watching it is so painful. It must be painful for many of the viewers. I know that you see the same thing I do. Without transcendent truth, there is only power to fight about and personal preference. Without God, all that remains is the will of the state, and you better behave at the point of a gun. And that's why that chaplaincy surrender matters. It matters why the cross got changed into a tree. That's why the 2-tier justice system matters, both in the US and Canada and the UK. That's why the fertility collapse matters. These are all related. They're not disconnected phenomenon. They're symptoms of the same spiritual disease. The West's rejection of the God of our fathers and the substitution with this false, garbage, coexist, tell-hard God that is incapable of saving anybody. They bait and switched the very God of our worship in favor of idols we have fashioned for ourselves. And when we're bored of our own little personal idolatries, we've got the Pachamama to give a great big hug to. In Flanders fields the poppies blow, between the crosses row on row. If ye break faith with us who die, we shall not sleep, though poppies grow in Flanders fields. But there's another thing that we obviously, there's breaking the faith with God. What about all these saints that went before us? What about their inheritance to us? Do we embrace them? Do we spread their message to a world that no longer believes? Do we do it? Do we get off our rump? Or are we scared that people are going to think we're a religious wingnut? I mean, for me, that ship sailed, right? You know what? I got a funny story for you. I got a funny thought, actually. Felix has heard me tell it many times. But I'm going to share it with you if you haven't heard it. So there's near my church, there's this little diner called Frank's. And my residence is no longer near the church. But when I lived up near the church, I used to go to this place, I'd say maybe twice a month. And it's a little diner like every town has them. Just a little place you can get breakfast or a little brunch or something. And I tell this story as a thought exercise. So imagine if you went to Frank's and you just got up in the middle and you just said, I just want to thank God for this day. Praise to you, Lord Jesus Christ, and for all you good people for sharing, my community. I just hope that God blesses you abundantly. And you sit down and have your coffee and eat. Now, imagine you doing that, first of all, and then imagine you seeing a stranger say that. Now, some of you would be absolutely horrified to get up and say something like that. You wouldn't, some of you are scared of saying anything in front of a group of strangers. It's a natural human fear. But I want you to put yourself in the position of the spectator for a moment. Now, there's 3 reactions that'll happen if someone did such a thing. Here's the 3 reactions. The first reaction would be like, what is that idiot doing? He's interrupting my dinner. I don't like that guy. All right. The second reaction is, so that there's a person that's repulsed by the action. Then there's the person that's kind of indifferent. They're like, okay, that's kind of weird, but they're not offended. They're just like, I wonder what inspired that. And then there's the third that'll say, amen, brother. Praise Jesus. Now, I got to tell you, it's a litmus test for if you are in God's friendship, then you are going to be attracted, or at least not repulsed, by a holy thing. But if you're repulsed by it, then that's a powerful signal. And our society is repulsed by the holy by and large. Again, probably not most of our viewers here. I'm sure we have some people that are sort of lukewarm or just sort of kicking the tires that watch one of these videos from time to time. But I'd be very surprised if someone who's truly hostile to the faith does. The thing is that Lieutenant Colonel McCrae's poem carries a warning as well as a tribute. If ye break faith with those who die, we shall not sleep. We've taken the inheritance purchased with blood and squandered it, to a lesser extent in the U.S., but the whole West has done it. We've surrendered the freedoms for which they died to bureaucratic tyranny. We've replaced their God with therapeutic platitudes and false gods. We have chosen demographic extinction. We don't have enough children over the hard work of building families. And to be fair, we haven't allowed the policies to exist to allow large families anymore. The debt we owe cannot be repaid with ceremonies and empty words. It can only be repaid by choosing to live as though the things they died for still matter. So what does that mean practically? It means naming God in the public square. So this is going to have some of you outside of your comfort zone. We must once again name God in the public square. Religion's not a private matter if you believe in the gospel. Even when the state demands silence, we are going to be loud. It means having children and raising them in the faith. And if you're beyond childbearing years, then you can support your family members that hopefully do, or adopt a family as someone that you're going to sort of help sponsor. And even when every economic and cultural pressure works against it. It means speaking unpopular truths, even when doing so invites censorship or prosecution. It means rebuilding the institutions, the churches that have, by and large, fallen from their way. They talk about recycling and open borders more than they do the gospel and the salvation of souls. Families, communities that make free and virtuous life possible. We got to build those institutions again. A media that is punished when it doesn't tell the truth. It's one thing to get something wrong. We all get things wrong, but there are some that intentionally deceive us, and we've got to really shame them. The thing is, it means, in short, to refuse to go quietly into the demographic and spiritual extinction our elites have planned for us, these globalist elites. It's true. It's not conspiracy theory. Go to read their websites. Look at the influence they have. They have it all mapped out. They want to reduce world population. They want to get rid of nationhood. They want everything to be post-national. They have a very Malthusian view of humanity, that humanity is the enemy. And the thing is that we have to work for these things, not through violence and not through revolution, but through the patient, costly work of restoration. Now, I suppose hypothetically, the environment could change that. Well, some countries are probably going to need revolution, like the UK, for example. I don't think they're going to be able to reform it. There's a lot of hope in the US right now. We'll see if it bears fruit. The men who lie in Flanders fields, buried there, and countless other graveyards across Europe and beyond, they did so. They did not die so that their descendants would be forbidden to name Jesus. They did not die so they could be arrested for a Facebook post. They did not die so we could be demographically replaced through mass immigration. They died believing that they were securing a future for Christian civilization. If we truly honor them, we will fight to make that future reality. We will take up the torch they threw to us from failing hands, and we will hold it high. We will not break faith. So, Felix, what do you think?
Well, I don't know. Where do we start? I mean, I guess the number one thing is by including everybody in these in all these faiths, you literally excluded the one true God. Like,
right?
I mean,
like this is it for those of you. Some of you know Felix and I personally, or actually, you all know if you watch here because we are what we are, right? But the thing is, we're not anti any other group. We just have to be assertive promoting Christianity because no one is. Not our own churches aren't. All these big churches aren't at all. They're not pushing Christianity. They're apologizing for it. Now, I got to show you something funny. I'm going to show you something very funny. Now, some of you are going to be mad at me, but that's
Uh-oh.
We know we know what I'm like, right?
How dare you?
I know. Okay, now I'm going to show you. I took away the sound. I want to avoid copyright issue. I want to present to you the commander of the Canadian military. All right. Now you're not going to believe this when I show it to you. I want you to think of two things. I want you to think of your great or your grandparent, your great grandparent who fought in one of these world wars being introduced that this is the head of the military. And then the second, can you imagine if Secretary of War Hegseth met this? How do I get going? There we go. So I took out the sound. This head of the Canadian military in this speech was crying. She was apologizing for racism. She broke down in great tears. Exactly. Now, yeah, I don't know about you, but if Constantine and Charlemagne or Secretary of War Hegseth saw that, was introduced that, is the head of a military of a Western power, I would love to know the reaction, Felix. I can't even, I don't think I can come up with an adjective.
I don't know. Yeah, but I mean, like, he who cries first loses, I guess, in war, right? I mean, I don't know. Like, this is
you didn't know, did you? You didn't know that's yeah. So the only thing that's on our northern border of the U.S. is Canada, and that's the head.
Oh my God! Well, I mean,
I'm
like,
sure she has very impressive pronouns in her email block. Now, nothing like a DEI hire to make it all work, right?
And anyway. Ironically, I think that who was the one that we had? Because I mean, like, we shouldn't throw stones. But
okay, Felix has a point. The previous guy, there was one guy there. At least this one's honest.
Yeah, right. But at least this one, at least we found someone that this one could beat up. Whatever. I can't remember this one's name.
Well, I'm sorry. Again, it may come across a little mean, but I'm sorry, guys. There's no red-blooded male that's going to view that individual as inspiring. And it's more than optic, Bishop Michael. Yeah, I know it's more than optic, but it doesn't matter. 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 It doesn You know, I mean, in this sense, it's just that, you know,
It
it's
is also an optic, whether
yeah.
you want it or not. You know,
Yeah, I can
even if
almost guarantee you she's been blessing more rainbow crosswalks than going to here going to the cenotaph and praying for the war dead. So
yeah.
it is what it is. So yeah, so I don't know, Felix, you got any did you okay, so I'm gonna ask Felix and you guys can weigh in on comments and stuff too. Felix, did you ever hear the Canadian Freedom Convoy, the trucker convoy?
Oh, when they were honking horns and yeah, absolutely, I was following that. Yeah, rooting for
So
them.
it made the Florida news down here. I'm just sort of curious. So what was the impression of? I mean, I know it wasn't a big talking point down in the U.S., but by and large, you'd say most Americans would have probably supported those truckers.
Well, yeah, I mean, I can definitely just speak for myself. I was definitely pro trucker. Um, yeah, and they were, and it was just insane to see the retaliation
Oh, the
that was
brutality
taken
even by the
against them.
police in
Yeah,
some cases. Yeah, I mean,
yeah,
people like to think Canadians are so nice, but they weren't. They're not nice. They're not nice to when you want to protect your constitutional rights and you
right.
come against the state with it. Do you know they inspired some things? So again, I don't know how many of you guys like. Again, I don't know how common it is people watch a lot of sort of non-urgent, non-American news, right? But that trucker convoy inspired certain labor protests and whatever in the UK, the Dutch farmers and the German farmers. So it sort of cascaded. Canadians inspired the UK and the Dutch, and then the Dutch inspired, you know, the Germans and the like. And basically, I forget it was the Dutch. It was the Dutch that did this. They took their the World Economic Group, these
Yeah.
globalists that we were talking about. They don't like humans very much. So one of the things they want to do is shut down a lot of the food production. And one of the ways that they do it is they outlaw the fertilizer. So the Dutch rose up against this fertilizer thing. Plus, their lands were being confiscated to make condos for the newcomers. This beautiful farmland that's been in generational, you know, families for generations. And the UK, the way they went after the farmland is they put such an inheritance tax on the land that the kids couldn't keep the family farm. See, so they do this stuff all quite intentionally. And in Canada, then they're giving away whole pieces of cities to Aboriginals. And meanwhile, people have been paying mortgages on their house. Well, it doesn't matter. It's not like the government's going to buy the house even to give it to the Aboriginal. Oh no, sucks to be you. There's a hatred of the people that are in power for the ordinary person. And so the Dutch rose up and they drove tractors and they surrounded like various government squares and stuff, and they started spraying manure everywhere, which we won't touch. I shouldn't have even said that, Felix, because it's
Yeah.
been in the news. There's been that release of what happens at certain celebrations in India.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. I know. If only we could have combined both events and like everyone would have been happy.
Right. Anyway, let's not go down that rabbit
Shame
hole.
on us.
I know I'm awful, guys. Like I'm either you like it or you're horrified by me. I'm sorry. Yeah, that's a riot. I gotta say. So for those who don't know what I'm talking about, there's this citizen journalist that went on and he put on like basically a hazmat suit and he went to visit and according to the World Health Organization, which I'm not a fan of, but they were referring to some unsanitary practices in certain countries. And certain countries like to hurl literal feces at one another. So this guy went because he wanted to know if it's true, and it was. And he took a video. Right. He took a video of all these festivals where the whole town is throwing poo on another.
And they were like, we were talking like Nolan Ryan fastballs of poop.
And then he upsets the country. Right. And he upsets the immigrants from said country, including a very famous conservative commentator whom I like normally, but he got mad. And so anyway, what happened was the fellow was brilliant. It's great marketing. The guy said, listen, my family's been threatened. I've been threatened. So I'm not going to release this documentary. And then then like 2 days later, he's going to release it. Like, the documentary's out. Right.
Yeah.
So anyway, I'm probably not going to watch it because I'll end up, getting sick. But
I know, right? Yeah, when you're not going to eat it while
yeah,
watch while we eat dinner, you know what I mean? Like,
right,
when are you watching that?
right. So
You
I
know?
don't know, guys. It's just, I mean, the whole world's gone nuts. You know, it's funny. I sometimes tell my flock too, right? I said, I know I sound crazy, but what would you expect, you know, a person to sound like if the world's gone mad? Like,
Yeah, right.
right?
Because I mean, like, just think about what you're saying here. People are going to think that we're crazy because we're laughing at people throwing poop, which in any cartoon,
Right.
whatever it is, it would be a punchline or any comic.
Yeah.
So we would be the weirdos for laughing at that, but
Well,
they're the normal
what
ones.
strikes me, Felix, is at one point in time in history, someone actually had the idea that this would be fun, and then convinced other
And it
people to
caught
do it.
on. Oh yeah,
Right.
yeah, and well, and this ties into because they think cows are holy, and this is cow
Yep.
stuff that they're playing with here, and I mean, if there was ever a better commercial for Christianity, like honestly, it's like Christianity, we do not fling poo, I
No.
mean, like
Sometimes figuratively. Sometimes
yeah,
figuratively. Really not literally. Now now I would like to open it up. I haven't seen the comment thing. I don't have my
we got a bit, and we
yeah,
got the
but
great
I
Father
also
Haygood and Dale.
we're going to go through those, but I'm going to encourage folks if you have a story of an ancestor, a parent, grandparent, or whatever that has served for our freedom, and you want to honor them here, like put it in the comments, and we'll acknowledge it. It's amazing, you know, and I thank every person watching here who served in uniform. Thank you for your service. And I think most
Yes.
of the people that would be inclined to watch us is probably in agreement with us, Felix, that we have to do better as a civilization to honor this sacrifice.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. The best way to honor their sacrifice is to give housing to immigrants, apparently. So,
Apparently, and to recycle.
yeah, and
And recycle.
recycle. And but no, actually, yes. Thank you to all of our brave men and women that are, like you said, they signed a blank check to
Yeah.
fight for this country. So thank you, and you definitely do honors. And I'll tell you what's sad. I'm gonna confess. I had no idea it was Veterans Day until you told me during the
Right.
stream. I saw
Well,
nothing about
actually,
it.
I'm glad you mentioned it though, because now you guys will have to explain to me because I'm a new American, but the the what's the okay, so Veterans Day, which over is the same as the Commonwealth's Remembrance Day, there's
Yep,
also this connotation of acknowledging existing serving members, correct?
of course.
Okay. So
I
and
would
then
think so. Yeah,
your day primarily of the dead is Memorial Day in the spring.
Memorial Day. Right, right.
Right.
That would be for the fallen
So
vets, right?
right. So that's what I'm just saying. The Canada and the UK, there's not really any day that honors the existing vets.
Okay.
There's just
Oh wow.
no, but that's fine. Ugh,
Well,
Lord only knows what to do. They make you do. Oh, I should find that day. Oh, I should show you.
right.
So if Felix ends up answering one of the questions, I'm going to take the time to show you a very funny video. But
Okay.
I hope it's not copyrighted. I'll get in trouble. But whatever. I will look that up if there's a comment on there that you can riff off for a little bit. But what was I going to say? Yeah. So just so you understand, that's why there's the poppies and the emphasis of the cenotaph. It's actually really a beautiful thing because there's not a lot that Canada does. Like the U.S. even in the good days, the U.S. was always more of a patriotic nation, and Canada's patriotism was sort of quieter. But the one thing I would say that was kind of neat that you would see a fair bit of the community come out with the prayers, the cenotaph, even if people weren't overly religious. It was just it was something that was done to honor the people that went away. Some towns lost all their men, right? The
Yeah.
province of Newfoundland in World War One, they lost a whole generation. So it was kind of a serious thing, and
Can
that's
you? Oh, Lord.
yeah, a whole generation of men gone in Newfoundland. But anyway, let's
And
work through
yet
the
it's
comments.
now that
Yep.
we're dealing with, it's now that we're dealing with the population problem.
Yep.
Go
True.
figure. Okay, yeah, let's go through the comments. Let's see. I'm going to start far back here and add questions and comments. We will try to get, answer most of them as best we can. So Father Haga kicks us off with excited for tonight's episode. I have some news, which if you haven't posted it yet, Father Haga, I'm definitely curious to know. Let me see. Okay, that's me. All right. Aries says hi. Hi, Aries. How are you? Hope you're enjoying the show and still with us. Norm says good to be back. It's always good to have you, Norm. Norm also says, I am slowly reading Robert Andrews' biography, Churchill, Walking with Destiny. I always think of what he would be thinking and feeling if he saw what Great Britain has come to in this time. Well, I mean, there is also the Stephen Carroll, the Stephen Carroll book on Churchill and World War II, which is, I think is a little bit more popular, but I think a bit more controversial. I'm sure Stephen Carroll had some thoughts about what Churchill would be thinking. Let me see. Michael Mitchuff says how they would be so sad how people worship false gods. I think that's what he meant to say here.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. I think that's the biggest problem. The inclusivity in the sermons, like you said, like and it's actually exclusivity. It's this war on words. It's disgusting, and I think it did kind of hit me like a ton of bricks here. Like what I said earlier, it's like you're including everybody and excluding the one true God.
Uh-huh.
Like, think about how dumb that is. Go to a restaurant and they fit in so many people, but they couldn't allow chefs. So this is where we are.
Yeah, absolutely.
Father Haygood says, my nieces and nephews call me with their religious questions, and I love it. I love knowing that they can come to me for that.
That's awesome.
That is awesome, Father Haygood. I think we all kind of agree that the pendulum's swinging the other way, and this new generation coming up might be ultra Chad based, with a little prayer and guidance if we're lucky. That's right. I think we will be all right. Norm says, you can't make this up. I find myself repeating this refrain: values lost, turned upside down, good is bad, bad is good. This is spiritual war for sure.
Oh yeah, no, and Scripture's very clear that there'll be a time when evil is called good and good is called evil, and then our Lord repeats that they'll cast you out of the synagogues and do evil to you and say it's in their God's name, right?
Oh yeah, I think the demonic has been flourishing, and it's funny because I was watching a video today that I believe you have talked about, at least the content, not the video itself, but I think it was Leo the 13th.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it was Leo the 13th who had a dream that there was going to be that basically that God that the devil said, if you give me a certain amount of time, I can wreak havoc on your church.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And God said, he goes, okay, here's your time.
Yep.
I think it reminds me of Job, kind of like where we can, I think we are going to come out on top as long as we keep our faith. That's the story of Job. He never lost faith, but it got bad. Let me see what else. One of my favorite quotes from the TV series Outer Limits: without love, drones cannot be men. Without love, men can only be drones.
It's true.
Real love, not fake love. Agape love.
Yeah, which for those who don't know means selfless love, right?
That's selfless love, right? That's that's the love they usually associate with Jesus, right? Agape.
Absolutely.
Right. Okay. If my great Father Haygood says, if my great grandfather was still alive, he was 82nd Airborne during World War II and was on the battle. He was at the Battle of the Bulge. He would remind me that they weren't just fighting for them; they were fighting for us.
That's awesome. That's an awesome attitude. That's kind of neat. So it's just going to show you. See, Bishop Haygood's a fair bit younger than me because it'd be my grandfather. That era. I had a funny thing. I think I apologize if I retell some of these stories. I was telling a friend a story about my friend Father Melnick, and he passed away a little while ago. But the story was about 30 years ago. And I thought, jeepers, that's just like it was like a week ago, 2 weeks ago. How did the time fly? And then I realized that's 30 years ago, and it went like a blink. And then if you take my birth year, you subtract 30 years, you get World War II. And I never felt really old before that. Well,
Yeah.
there you go.
Someone said that it was like, the time from the time that I was born till now is longer than the time from I was born to World War II. So I'm like, oh, well, thank you for that crisis that I'm gonna have now. All right, let me see. Father Haygood also says he's continuing from the last comment. He was the wisest man I've ever known. He believed in the American dream and the American people, even during the darkest days. And I gotta say, I'm kind of there too.
So where the church, hey Dale. So where the church, where the Christian church, Catholic Church in particular, but the overall, even the baptized, where we share something similar with the nation of the United States, is that I suspect that if it falls in appearance, at least on earth, because we know that certainly the church Jesus founded, the fires of hell can't prevail, but that doesn't mean that we're going to keep all the buildings and everything's going to be hunky-dory, right? So the thing is that the United States and the church share this attribute, that if we have a fall, it's going to be from inside. It's not going to be from outside, I think.
Yeah.
And that's my opinion. You can be, but
no,
just as the Lord had Judas, you see a lot of these churchmen are really bad, and they attack us from the inside. Outside, truth doesn't need a lie to defend it. We can face any religion just with the truth of the scripture and of the councils and of the saints, and that's all we need. But it's when our own church people redefine all these things and make them ridiculous, we don't have a leg to stand on.
Yeah.
I mean, the moderns can't even follow their 1990s catechism, and they don't think it through. They don't realize how that's hard to evangelize when you appeal to a certain church authority and it keeps it a moving target. And how's that work?
Yeah. Now, and I did this could be borderline heretical, so correct me immediately if I'm wrong on this, but I've had this thought, or like this almost theory, where it's like we're going to see almost like the gospel mirrored in what happens with the church. And I don't know if that was intentional. And again, like I know I'm not this smart. I'm almost positive someone has thought of this probably like in 200 AD or something like that. I just never read who said it, but that we're gonna see these types of there's like tons of foreshadowing into what happens to the church nowadays, and like from like either the parables or from the verses themselves.
I found it, Felix. Sorry for the distraction, guys. I had this.
I killed enough time.
No, you did. You did a great job. So it's in the window there, our little chat window. If you want to figure out how to broadcast it.
Oh, okay, cool. I see. All right.
I don't know. You guys aren't going to believe this when we show it to you.
I know, right? Give me 2 seconds. I'm just setting it up right here.
All right. Make it full screen.
Okay. I will.
I can just imagine what I would do if I was in uniform there. I'd end up court-martialed.
I know, right? Wait, why did this
just from my mouth I'd be court-martialed.
Yeah, right? Wait. Stop screen.
See, that's why I Felix do all this, because I'd end up like shutting us off. I'd be gone. Be like, where is Meikle? Yeah.
Yeah, right.
Okay. You can't make this stuff up, guys. So let it rip, Felix. Take Dale down.
Go. You ready? First, pick up your left leg up like this and bring it back. Up and back. Up, back. Up, 4, 3. ਓਏ ਚੱਕ ਚੱਕ ਲਾ ਚੱਕ ਦੇ ਫੱਟੇ ਤੇ ਚੱਕ ਲਾ
So Felix, I think we had enough. guess yeah. So, guys, yeah, exactly. You can understand that our enemies are going to run away in fear, but maybe for the wrong reasons.
And was this sorry, before or this must have been before the pooflinging? I'm sorry. Was that
the spiritual leader is a kind and sweet man, and I'm sure there's nothing malicious in him at all. But this old sailor and this Catholic is absolutely horrified at it all. And it's like, now I got to tell you something. Now, again, you guys are free to, I try to separate when I'm talking to you about stuff that the church demands us to believe, and then just my opinion. The following is just my opinion. Is that because I don't know what God's view of this gentleman is or what have you. But what I can tell you is that the devil, when he's not content just to get any of us into mortal sin, wherever he can, he likes to reduce our dignity because it insults the incarnation, right? So why I say, well, we might disagree is you might say, well, that didn't reduce human dignity. I say it does. We're wearing a uniform. We're supposed to. That was the uniform I used to wear. That's the combat dress when you for seagoing combat dress. The blue and the black there. Australians and Brits wear the exact same uniform, just our country's different on the tag. Yeah, I just, to me, it's a, on one level you're just saying, oh, you're just having fun or whatever. Fine, it's at a barbecue, you're in civilian clothes, but that was at a work day, and oh well, let's light up the firefighting helicopter and great big bonfire and flames, right? Like
one of the top comments on there was like, "Forget Burning Man, I'm going to Burning Helicopter next year."
Did someone say that? Yeah. Who said that? That's awesome. Put that up there.
Oh, I just closed it. Hold on.
Oh, I'm sorry. You mean on the comment on that? I thought one of our crowd did that. I was going to say, okay, who gets the prize for being clever there? That's cool.
Yeah, that's hilarious.
But see, this is the thing, right? Like, I mean, when I was in, the crazy just started coming, right? Like I retired before the worst ever happened.
Right.
But one of the crazy things was when we were at sea, the rules came in. Men could no longer relieve themselves on the bridge wing because fish would be polluted by, human pee. And then the other thing was, that's fine. There's mixed crews now. I can sort of understand. And then the other thing was you weren't allowed to pour bottled water overboard because that would hurt the fish.
Yeah.
And then they'd do stuff like that. Like I don't mind difference of opinion. It's the BS that gets me, right? So this is what they do. They'd pull into a port and they'd pay like $250,000 for environmental treatment of the gray water and the black water. Like that's your wash water and your sewage.
Yeah.
But in some of these countries, they just pulled up a barge. They happily took the check for $250,000. They pumped it off the ship. It's certified environment, and they just poured it off over the side and the other side, and they laugh. But the Europeans, the Canadians, the Americans, well, we signed off that we did it in an environmental friendly manner. We got the documents to prove it. So it's just a game. Like, so there's so much grift that goes on with a lot of these things, right? And so,
right.
That's part of the reason why we got to be careful. Like subsidiarity, that's church social justice teaching. Social justice in a good way. So subsidiarity means that money has to be spent and the resources, the decisions have to be made local. So one of the things that drove me nuts, like there's a lot of hypocrisy, that these people that go to these climate conferences go in on private jets, right? But they say that you're only allowed one airline flight every 2 years, but they get to use a private jet because they're special. And they'll do stuff like the most environmentally progressive or concerned or whatever province in Canada is British Columbia. Go ahead and Google what the city of Florida, their capital, city of Florida. What am I talking about? The city of Victoria. The city of Victoria. The capital of British Columbia, how they treat their sewer. They just put open sewer in the water. So that kind of stuff drives me nuts, right? Because they'll be the first people to lecture at us for making sure the right type of plastics in the right kind of container and, six levels of recycling and all this kind of crap. But then they pour actual like poisonous crap into the ocean. Like, what's wrong with you people? They'll worry about a seal farting or a cow farting, but they don't care about all that waste going into the water or all these chemicals that go in the water from, the various pharmaceuticals that humans consume. So it's just kind of weird. I don't know. Like I always get a kick out of it because in some ways I'm probably more of an environmentalist than some of them that are loud, in the sense that I just want clean. I want a clean environment, but I'm not into all this virtue signaling, right? Which I think is a bunch of crap.
Yeah. Yeah, it exposes a lot of, like you said, hypocrisy and ridiculousness. Father Haygood says, as a Florida man, in quotes, yes, we would support truckers. Even the children of the corn support truckers. Everyone supports the truckers except for like the big city folk, I think that's what ended up happening in Canada, right? Was it Toronto or where was it?
Ottawa is one of these cities that only exists. It's like, kind of like DC. It only exists to support government. It has no real utility. So it's they got very upset with having some of their streets blocked.
Well,
but, what would happen is
it was more than that.
Independent reporters would go, and they would, they saw everybody was basically having a party. They were welcoming to everybody. They weren't, and then I saw an interview. There's a fellow I follow, John Bolton, not the evil John Bolton, but the good one. It's John Bolton AB. And not to be confused with the guys in trouble right now. But no, this fellow's just like, he's a 60-year-old Albertan, and he had a guest. What was his name? He was a constitutional lawyer up in Canada. But anyway, this fellow was saying that he ended up defending some of these truckers. And he said when he went down to visit, he said there was these impromptu support gatherings, right? So what would happen is on the overpasses, as a trucker convoy would come in, supporters would line these overpasses, the highway, and hold signs and honk horns and do whatever. And he said when he was walking around them, he said a very common story was that everybody was saying, I thought I'd be the only one or two or three people. And instead there were hundreds of people. But see, this is what happens when you have a state-controlled media, and they pretty well do. So the information doesn't get out unless it only gets out from word of mouth in places like Rumble and YouTube and Twitter. So if you don't
think about this, you're saying that there are people saying, I thought I would be the only one, and they still came out. Think about all of the people who stayed home because they thought they were the only one. And this isn't like, I'm not judging. Seriously, I'm not. Like, I know. But it's like, I'm not going to go out there and stand out there by myself. It's going to be pointless. Well, like, how many people got discouraged and didn't do that for that reason?
I guess, it's combined what Felix is saying with what I was trying to get at with the point here is that I want you guys to find some encouragement. I don't want you to feel ridiculed that the society went this way. I want us to say, okay, it's like they said, I had this guy, this old chief when I was in basic training. Meekle, you suck. Like right in my face, like Meekle, you suck. And then he said, stop sucking. And I was so happy. I don't know why, because that's like normally they just tear you down, right? No, because stop sucking implies that he believes that you can you
just stop. Yeah, right? yeah. I mean, one day you're going to get to that level.
So that's kind of what I'm saying to our civilization. We have a chance here, right? We have a chance to turn it all around.
Oh yeah,
that old devil. He's so smart. He's already causing. Oh my goodness, folks. Speaking of what I was going to say, a realization. I had no idea. See, I go into work mode and I don't pay attention to Twitter or the different news for a couple days, and then I sort of binge it.
Right.
I just found out that Ben Shapiro, whom I used to admire for his debating ability, Ben Shapiro lied to Megyn Kelly about something very, very serious. It should be a career ender, and was caught. And do you know what I'm talking about, Felix?
Yes. So he was telling Megyn Kelly that Tucker Carlson is like a straight up anti-Semite. I think he just stopped shy of that, saying that, but and his rationale was that he did not disavow someone who had this view that should be considered anti. It was such a connect the dots. No, but
did you hear what the lie that he said though? It was pretty serious.
Yeah. It was basically that he was that
No. Tucker. This is going to be news for you too. Then.
Oh, okay.
I mean, yes, you're absolutely right. That's a lie. But I mean, you could argue, well, that's just his view and it's wrong.
That's a stupid opinion, right?
It's a stupid opinion. No. He on air with Megyn Kelly said that Candace Owens believed that Charlie Kirk's wife killed him.
Oh, yes, I did. Yes. I did hear that.
Then Megan didn't hear anything about it, but she thought, well, maybe that's just news I didn't hear. And then she didn't call him on at the time. And then she found out that it was a complete fabrication.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, this is the problem, folks. We can't allow the bad guys to pull us into their pit. All right.
Oh, yeah.
When the last election happened, there was a whole bunch of people on the conservative side that thought that end justify the means. That's what we got to do. So we just gotta out cheat them. No,
no,
never. You know, the minute we fall into that, then it just becomes power rather than being about the real, true, and good. It's not power under the real, true, and good is a noble thing. It's a tool. It can be exercised in a righteous manner, but power for its own sake always leads you to evil. And the notion that the ends justify the means, they do not. They do not.
Yeah.
It is important how we win, right?
Oh,
and
this is definitely going to open up some wounds here, because, like, especially with Ben Shapiro and what he represents, right. There's definitely a reckoning coming for like the certain lobbies.
The devil wanted to spit. I don't want to call us the conservative movement, because there's libertarians and sort of middle right centrists. I want to call it the non-left movement. So the non-left movement this is a wedge between us, right? Because we're about 50-50. Like, the way, I don't want to get on this rabbit hole. It might be worth a show. Then again, it might get us perma-banned. I don't know.
Oh,
but
yeah. You should totally do it.
I don't think. Like, my position is, and I'm of all the people that are watching here, we got the whole spectrum here. All right, we got the whole spectrum. I know we do.
Yeah.
But my personal opinion is that I don't consider myself anti a certain ethnicity just because I don't want to fund their wars. Right? I even support them having their own nation, but I'm saying they should not presume that it's our job to fund their wars. And they start crap, and then we're supposed to get them out of it. And we have a congressman in Florida, and I don't remember his name. It starts with B, I think, or something. But that guy basically was going on that his loyalty to this foreign nation is bigger than his own. Dude, you're violating your own oath against
Ted Cruz.
So get out.
Ted Cruz said that. He said that on Tucker show, pretty much.
I never thought, like, I'm not against Brett Cooper. I don't know Brett Cooper. I just saw this clip. I've never watched one of her shows in totality. I just see her on clips, but I will say this. She was bang on in the clip I saw. She says,
"Oh yeah,
I don't hate you. I don't dislike you. Whatever." She goes to the disclaimer. I'm just saying you would be happier if you go and live in that country. So why don't you go? That's my position too. I'm saying everybody should be where they're going to be contributive and they have loyalty to. So,
and I think Ben Shapiro is they're stealing pixels from your stream right now. For some reason they got us in the low resolution. But no, you're 100% right. We definitely need to do a show on that, and even the go on.
It's a minefield though, Felix. You know what? So the traditional Catholic movement, for those, again, some of you are just curious. You're just like, well, who is this crazy guy, Mikkel and Felix? But but no, the traditional Catholic world is a very interesting spectrum. Right.
Yeah.
So I get it. I typically get growled at from both extremes. Like, and I'm not one of these guys. Oh, I got to be exactly in the middle. I'm not in the middle at all. Okay. I've never been in the middle hardly of anything. But that said, I do get critique from the right and I do get critique from the left. I get critique from the right because my silly sense of humor is not dignified enough, they figure. And also, I don't follow their particular faction. So therefore, I get critique from the right for that. And then I get critique from the left for, I guess, being old-fashioned or, just wanting the old faith. And it is kind of funny because I do find, so on the subject of this nation that we're talking about, I totally reject the notion that a lot of my non-denominational acquaintances believe that they want to help rebuild a temple so that there can be an abomination and our Lord will come back. I don't think it
Right.
necessarily needs a reconstruction of that temple there. That we could be talking about a symbolic reconstruction. And also, the primary temples of the new covenant are going to be Christian churches. They're not going to be that temple. So there's
Right.
people that would argue there's a theological argument. Yes, there is. You're right. I'm not. I'll get people firing quotes and stuff at me. Listen. I've read them. I've heard them. I'm not. You may be right, but what I'm getting at is that this notion that somehow evangelical Protestants or non-denominationals would support another religion
Yeah.
against their own, to me violates John chapter 1.
Yes.
Right?
1,000,000%. 1,000,000%.
John chapter 1. You read John. So, but the thing is, when someone like me says something like that, then what happens is people say that I'm anti that particular group, and I'm not. I'm just saying the teachings of my religion in John chapter 1 contradict my evangelical friends, my non-denominational friends, and this movement which demands American taxpayers borrow from other countries to fund that other country's war. That doesn't make any sense. None of it makes any sense. Well, there's veterans in the streets, okay? So if you want to support that country, move there.
Yeah, and again, this gets me angry a little bit, because we're being accused of being anti-them. Let me tell you something, guys. And again, I'm speaking for myself. I'm not speaking for Father Meikle or for the church in this sentence here. But look up what they believe is happening to our Lord right now. All right, in
their own encyclopedias.
In their own writings, and the fact that they would accuse us of being anti them, like, in a way, it's very disrespectful. I don't know, like, Father, let me tell you, my views have been so topsy-turvy again. For guys who have been listening to the show for a while, I was like a crazy loony liberal lefty up until maybe 10 years ago or so, like, the around a little after the first Trump election or whatnot. But
sure.
But again, like, all my views have gone through a crucible of their own, where it's like, oh, okay, like, a lot of my views have been tested, and many have changed, and this is definitely one of them. I had to get my eyes open.
Our views, since that last major event, like what was going on with regard to how people have been treated. And I guess it boils down to, I agree with, again, I don't mean to make it a political issue, but I agree with what President Trump seems to be wanting to do, is get America out of a lot of these foreign entanglements and focus on the Western Hemisphere. And, that's just, it doesn't make any sense. I don't care whether you're a hawk or a dove or whatever. It makes zero sense to borrow money on future generations that we're not even replacing properly and fully with our fertility rate. It does not make any sense to make these commitments while we have so many people that need help here at home. And it is what it is. I'm not saying we should completely cut off help or whatever. I'm just saying I think we have to be very clear on, it's got to be a win-win. It's got to be a benefit of both parties. And the other thing is that there's been some serious allegations, which I'm sure I'm not sure, I'm hoping whatever the truth is comes out with regards to how various intelligence services of supposed allies have been working against the American people. And if that's true, then that should all be exposed, and the American people will make up their own minds. And, if it's not true, then let's find out whatever it is. But anyway, didn't mean a rabbit hole. Do you want to keep going through the comments, or we won't get to truth? We're looking at a half hour.
This was one of those necessary rabbit holes. So this was, I hope we do a show on this. All right, so let me see. So Cynthia, always good to see you, Cynthia. She says, my father and all my 6 uncles were either in Japan or Germany, and a great uncle in World War I. I think they have been praying for us. So please, may they keep praying for us. We need all the help we can get.
Do you know, I want to point out something before you read Bishop Haygood's next one and thank Cynthia's family for her service. The thing is, we might, and if someone has this would be so neat. Did anybody have family that served on the other side in World War II.
Oh,
Because here's the thing. It happened around in the 80s. There became sort of like enough time had passed, wounds had healed for a number, and you'd have like people of a Corvette crew meet the old U-boat crew that they were hunting, that kind of thing, and they would all have a beer together, and because the opposite side was not necessarily fighting for the crazy guy that was they're in charge of their
for
country.
tiny mustache
They were
man,
loyal to their
right.
service. They were just patriots for their country. So that's sort of how people.
God, I'm telling you, now you're playing with fire. Now, I mean, that's almost worse than my comment. But good luck.
Well, there's a.
I agree with you.
I'll give you an
I agree with
example.
you.
Like there's certain. Actually, you saw it in Band of Brothers, which was a little more loosely than loosely based on real events with real soldiers. In fact, I was amazed how they had the actors look like the people that they played, and the Dick Winters character, the actor, the actual person, when he visited the set, he opened up the back of the truck to say hi to the actors, and he had to go home because it was just too much of an emotional thing. He said things like looking at ghosts. But anyway, the scene they rewrote the scene. But when he took the surrender of the German commander, there was a respect amongst soldiers, and they respected one another, and it was so it is kind of interesting. There's a brotherhood with the profession of arms, and it's hard for a lot of younger people maybe to understand that now because our politics are so divided and polarized. But there are honorable and dishonorable people in every military. I wouldn't suggest, if you want a peaceful view of what the Allies did, both sides did atrocities. There's Dresden, there's what the French government did to the Italians with their mercenary forces, and there's there was a lot of women really injured by France's decision, and their attitude was, well, they deserve it. Well, so there's a dark side to even our contributions in World War II. And then a lot of controversy about what happened to all the scientists of Germany, right? Both sides, Russia and the U.S. Operation Paperclip and the like. But again, I don't want to turn this into an episode of the Y-Files, but it is very, very interesting that that 50, 60, 100 years later after these events, we learn what really happened.
Yeah, look up how we got NASA. Anybody who doesn't know how NASA came about would be very interested to see like who started it and whatnot, and the people that were involved.
Yeah,
and you know what? Even aside from the tiny mustache man connections, the amount of occult and the amount of Satanism that was involved in the creation of NASA will sicken you.
I don't know anything about that one, Felix, but I will say I do know a lot about that regime had a fascination with holy relics and all that kind of stuff. Yeah. And also even CERN and whatever, the rituals that they chose to open it. Very weird. Very weird.
Even if you take out the German element of NASA, and you get spoiler alert, but we're talking about Jack Parsons, right? And Parsons was like a big he was a big occultist, right? Aleister Crowley, I think, was somewhat involved. L. Ron Hubbard.
He opened up his beer fridge and he heard Zool.
That's right. Make NASA.
We will. Felix and I will talk at some point. We might have to make this some sort of. It'll be our silly. See, we should do these themed episodes like near All Saints Day and stuff like that. But anyway, we'll carry on through the comments so we get through everybody. I don't want to lift.
Yeah. Oh no, only a few left. So don't be too worried. But okay, cool. So Father Hagen says Corporal Ollie J. Smith, U.S. Army, 82nd Airborne, 508th Parachute Infantry, Company B, veteran of the Battle of the Bulge. Thank you for your service, Corporal Ollie. Let me tell you, if you're a corporal, that is probably one of the worst ranks because you get just a little bit more responsibility than a typical, private or for a private first class. And then, but you're not quite a sergeant, so you're going to catch all sorts of hell from E5 and up. So wow, I mean, yeah, braver man. Father Haygood, we also acknowledge existing military on the 4th of... Yeah, of course. Yeah, 4th of
that's
July.
True. Yeah, and in fairness, yeah, I mean, Commonwealth forces sort of do too. I mean, you know, obviously people are in their uniform that day and that kind of stuff. But
yeah. But I mean,
there's
mostly...
I don't know of any other country in the West that honors its military more than the United States. There's a real respect. I find it, even though I served, actually, well, the only real operational stuff I did was with the U.S. Navy, but it's kind of neat because we were always treated, you know, very well, as if we were just one of the gang.
Yeah.
Being close allies, but I don't know if we're close allies anymore. Thanks to
I know, right?
Thanks to what's going on up north. But back in the day, we
Weepy
were
Granny.
Weepy Granny. I can't believe
where are we, man?
Between that and the dancing gurus, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Where are we, right? All right. So, you know what? I pray for Joshua. I am so happy that you are back. It is always good to see you, buddy. And he says there's an Armed Services Day in the U.S. for people currently serving. That's true. Honestly, bro, seriously, it is good to see you keep coming back, man. I hope to see you next week. Father Haga said that's the main one. I just can remember. Okay, I think he was responding to that. Right. When I was born, all of my great grandparents were still alive. I think I had one or two still alive.
Mm-hmm.
Let me see.
I had one. I think one great grandparent still alive. Yeah, it's and the grandparents stayed around for a while, but
no. All right. So let's see. Norm says one of the most beautiful honoring of veterans military films ever is a little gem titled "Taking Chance," starring Kevin Bacon. Every moment is what I would call godly. Oh, I think that Norm, correct me. I think there's a scene. I saw this in a YouTube short where he's traveling with a fallen soldier in an air, like he's being flown. So he's escorting the body, you know, and if there was like a tremendous scene there and like everybody thanking him. Yeah, I got to check this movie out.
Awesome. Yeah, I never heard of it, Norm, so thank you. That's a good tip.
Yeah, Taking Chance. I would also recommend Hacksaw Ridge for anybody who hasn't seen that one. Have you seen that one?
No.
Directed by Mel Gibson. Mm-hmm. And it's about this, it's like about a Catholic soldier who kind of had he did not want to use a weapon. He had, you know, one of the biggest heroes in World War II, saved more lives, but he just refused to fire guns and all this stuff. So it was a very, very great story. Michael, my chat is messed up. I think there's something all around. It could be that 3-Eye Atlas just messing with our signals here. That's why we're getting bad reception and bad resolution.
That's so right. We'll get it glasses. It'll be 4-Eyed Atlas.
I know, right? that actually deserves.
Come by and take me away now.
I know. Yeah. No, that really deserves. That deserves one of those. There you go.
It does.
Yeah. All right. Joshua West. There is a reason General Sherman said war is hell. General Sherman from Civil War, right? Yeah. So.
That's a very good point, Joshua. You know, every once in a while, like everybody gets frustrated with one another in the country, and they start talking about Civil War, and I mean, people have no idea that's the worst kind of war there is, and people have no idea.
Disgusting.
Like, even if your side wins, it's beyond hell. So it's heaven forbid we ever end up in that thing. But yeah, absolutely, war is hell.
Anytime someone, you're right. Anytime someone says that, you can immediately write off their opinion as ridiculous. Okay,
yeah, they don't know what they're talking about.
Yeah, I think like, God that I don't know what
right? In sense of wanting it.
You know, like because I acknowledge I don't know what it is, what it was like, but I can kind of. Yeah. I can imagine being horrified and being like ill-equipped to deal with it. You know what I mean? Or at least be afraid that that's the case. But yeah, no, war is hell. Very true. All right. So Norm also says, yes, incredibly moving. Yeah, that movie, the Taking Chance movie. I think that's what I was talking about. I missed the big news comment. Father Haygood, I am so sorry. You published a book. Are you able to share a link somehow?
Yeah, please.
I don't know if you're going to be able. They might block.
I don't know if YouTube will let you. But you know what you can do? You can space out put a couple spaces in the link, and then we'll know.
And then and I'll put it in correctly. Get us a link or give us some info on here, and let me see what I can find here on my own. But that is awesome. Congratulations. I definitely want to hear more. And that's actually the last comment.
Well, there you go. What did you do your book on?
Yeah. Tell us. I definitely want to hear about this book. I'm actually going to see if I can find it myself here. Let me see. It's all just way too quiet. I see a book here. The Middle Road. Okay. Middle Road. Okay. Give me just a few seconds to find it, Father. And I'm sorry, I'm all quiet. What else do we talk about while we do this?
Well, just I'm grateful that you guys all came out. I knew that the particular title and thumbnail would not be overly attractive to a lot of new viewers necessarily, and it's kind of niche, and especially since 90% of the audience is American. Why would they care about a Commonwealth holiday in a way? But I'll tell you why you should care, and you should care because, like I say, Canada and to an extent the UK are like canaries in the coal mine. And those of you who aren't aware of, anybody who grew up in a mining town knows exactly what that is. But if you haven't, basically miners used to take a canary down as sort of a mascot, as a little pet or whatever. And if the canary died, just dropped dead, it would its oxygen requirement, like it would be a warning to the miners, we've lost our air, so you get out. So that's where it comes from. So the problem is, like, all of these things that a lot of, I guess you call progressives, want to try. Like, when you think about it, North America has so many like states and provinces. Like, why not just trial all these ideas out and see, okay, which state or province wants to try this new healthcare system, or try this new car insurance scheme, or try this? Why don't we actually make everything sort of data centered, right? And as much as possible. And that would take, people of goodwill to work together. But then we could just like make it a friendly competition instead of hating one another. Why don't we make it a friendly competition? Florida versus Texas, or Massachusetts against Vermont on, the kind of paint they use in the run. Come up with an idea of criteria of success, give it a period of time, and have a competition of ideas. And that way, everybody, the rising tide raises all boats. Why do we have to hate one another for having different ideas? If you want a very liberal immigration policy, then why not say, okay, California, you wanted to do this? There's going to be restrictions on interstate movement for the newcomer, but we're going to say this is what we're going to trial. And if we have any trouble, we're going to shut it down or give it so many years. Try all this stuff. See what happens. One of the things that the character Sovereign, or whatever his name is, God love him, in New York, I mean, he just doesn't know economics. He's probably not a bad guy. He probably actually cares for people, but he just doesn't have basic economics. So he doesn't understand that his policies would mean, empty shelves and people hurting. So, but you say this and they're like, no, you're full of it. You're just for the greedy people. No, not at all. It's more complicated than a one variable problem. So is that the Good Bishop's book? Can you make it big?
Yes. Okay.
Very nice cover.
Very nice cover. Middle Road, Bishop Haygood. In an age when truth is treated as negotiable and the faith of centuries is bartered for modern convenience, Archbishop Jaden M. Haygood issues a clear and uncompromising call to return to the roots of English Catholic identity, and not in defiance of Rome, but in fidelity to the faith once delivered to the saints. The Middle Road is both a manifesto and a catechetical guide, I hope I'm pronouncing it right, blending prophetic urgency with historical precision to challenge the assumptions of post-conciliar Christianity and rekindle the Church's true Catholic heritage.
Well, congratulations on getting that out.
Yes, I just tried to share it, but the link is too big for the comment section. We're going to put it in the description So anybody interested in purchasing it, please purchase it. We definitely need all the help we can get, and we definitely need more books like this, especially. We need to stop with this middle of the road BS that has got our church in so much trouble. And maybe I'm speaking a little out of turn, actually, by doing it.
I think
so I should leave that
what
to you.
Felix is trying to do is thank and encourage the good bishop. Actually, what you ended up saying, Phil. I know what you meant. I think our audience know what you meant, but it came out like this middle road is BS.
yeah.
I know is not what you meant.
That's not what I was saying. Yeah. No. What I was saying is like this whole like lukewarm that we're being teaching, which I think kind of ties into what Bishop Haygood is talking about. I'm going to venture to guess like we got too much lukewarmness going on and not enough like yes or no, or let your yes be yes and your no be no type thing. And that's how we end up with, don't mention Jesus in the spiritual speech today because we don't want to hurt feelings. It's like, no, you gotta get away from that.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy when you think about it, that if a military has a chaplaincy and then won't let them invoke the deity, right? That's kind of bizarre.
Yeah,
like it speaks
bizarre.
to the bishop's book's point, right? Like,
yeah,
that's
what it leads to.
Yeah.
It's what it leads to, and it's by design. It's not like, oh wow, look, this is what happens if this is, with this ties into earlier. We'll go down it again, but this is a demonic attack, and this is like what they're pushing it towards. This watered down middle road, right, or middle of the road garbage that God is going to spit out on the last day, right?
Yeah, you can look at it two ways. On one hand, you want a middle road in the sense that you don't want to, you just want what God wants. You don't just
yes,
what happens
that's true.
To be heard over one or the other. And the other sense, take your point is that some people think that the middle is an exact center. It's rarely an exact center, right? So
correct.
So that's kind of what I'm getting at. I have friends that are like this. They pride themselves at being a centrist so much that they think the center has to be exactly in between, sort of like the Overton window, but they've turned it into this sort of like a little personal manifest, So it's but there's definite truth that you want to avoid. An example would be, when Catholics meditate on the role and office of the papacy. It's that Overton window bounces all over the place depending on the century. And so Roman Catholics are accept Vatican I. So that sort of sets one of the frames of the discussion. But I like to say, and I just joke amongst friends too, I said, I'm as Gallican as I can be without being a heretic. And so what I mean is I defer to the wisdom of the church, but I'm definitely, and I don't have an Orthodox view. I don't believe that the Pope's just a first among equals. But I really do resist this modern notion that the Pope's a Catholic Dalai Lama, that basically he can just make up whatever he wants. And, I don't like this in the catechism. And immediately like actual teaching has changed versus just a style or what have you. So, I mean, the way I look at it, a Pope is a servant of the truth. He's not the master of it. The master.
He's not the president of Christianity.
Yeah, and I mean, but that would just be an example of where people all of good faith, we could have a spectrum. Even watching here, we have a number of people watching live, and of course there'll be probably another 200 or so, 300 that'll watch it in replay, and there's a spectrum where we sit on that, and so and basically don't hate someone for having a slightly different view, because we're all going to know soon enough. God's going to either sort it out. And something's going to hit the fan soon. I think it's just the circle's only square so long, and but it is interesting talking to people over the years, both Protestant, Orthodox, and various forms of Catholic, regular and irregular. Different Sedevacantist communities even have different views slightly, and so it's interesting to hear these different perspectives. And I just you know, like I say, I just if a pope's teaching against a council, there's a problem, right? So it's you know, so but anyway, that's a big rabbit hole. That's 6 episodes.
Hey.
That's not even
Man.
that's not even a 5-minute rabbit hole. That's 6 episode rabbit hole.
We should have another show and just call it the rabbit holes, you know, and rabbit holes. And
We should do it maybe 4 times a year. We'll just have the rabbit hole episode.
The rabbit hole
We'll
episode.
catch up and all the crazy. And
So
you guys
I
can
think
vote for which we'll just start putting a graphic up, rabbit hole, and then you guys
rabbit hole.
can vote for which rabbit hole we're going to make an episode out of. Yeah,
Yes. All right. So I think I found probably one of the most intelligent, well thought out comments since we've started this whole podcast. It
Right.
comes from Michael saying, by the way, Felix rocks. And
Right.
yeah, there we go.
Well, he does. He does.
God bless you that you are too kind, and you rock for saying that. Thank you so much, Michael. And we hope, to keep seeing you. That's very nice of you.
Absolutely.
Father Hagen says it was definitely a labor of love. I will check it out. A little tight on money today, but I will get the book. You have my word, I will buy it.
That's awesome.
Amen, Felix. Okay. Oh, cool. So I wasn't totally off. All right. And Father Higgins said, hence why the character on the cover is slightly off the path. Let me see. Just as you can see, that's really cool.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Yeah, I didn't even pick up on that till he said that.
No, you did a good job. They say that you can't judge a book by its cover, but the reality of it is that's how people buy them. So you did a fine job, whoever you got to design that, or whether you did it. It's beautiful. Would you believe I have one in my inbox I haven't looked at yet? I went to Fiverr.
Okay.
No, it was on a recommendation of a YouTuber I followed, and I said this is book cover. So I did, but mine are all it's easy. There's a couple of them that are in progress, but you guys have already read them have access to it anyway, because I published a chapter or a modification of it on Substack. So I'll throw stuff out there, and then eventually I haven't read any of the comments the last 2 weeks, so I've got to go do that and go through. I don't want people to feel ignored, but I had one that sort of went viral for me on Substack, and it basically was, why do people bother with the mainstream church as it stands? And so again, it wasn't meant to be pokey chest. It was just just saying, well, this is a problem what we're in.
Yeah, you have to acknowledge it. I guess you don't have to, but the fact that you do is awesome.
Well, I try to, I have already. I've got a couple people. Do you know? I didn't know this, Felix. Do you know that there's a button on Substack that you can have the computer read it to you like a podcast?
Oh, wow!
I've never tried that, but Father Martin told me, and he made fun of me because he sent me his text, a screenshot from his phone, and he said Bishop Meikle's article, 39 minutes to read. I'm laughing. I thought I didn't think it was that long. But I said to him, in fairness, it's probably the footnotes, but I put a lot of footnotes. And the great thing is if you're not interested in that, you just don't have to read the footnotes.
Don't read the footnotes.
Yeah,
right.
But of course, I throw my sillier stuff in the footnotes.
So it's 10 minutes of actual meat of story, and then 30 minutes of footnotes.
Will appreciate this. You know how there's a footnote convention. You use ibid if you're referring to somebody, the reference before, or use opsited the name. Like if I said, "Hey, good," opsited page, 53. So if I've already quoted them, well, I've made up one, totally made up, just my own, and I to add to this, and it's called BERF. And so I, whenever I read some foolish modernist thing that makes me irritated, I put in the footnote BERF. So we're not.
Nice.
Don't expect any great scholarly contribution from me per se, but it is very authentic. Now, whether that's worth something, I don't know. But
listen. Hey, again, I've been doing a little bit of studying on the saints. Nothing crazy. Saint Joseph Cupertino, known as, and again in quotes, remarkably unclever, and yet he levitated and floated and gave signs and miracles. Do not have to be a genius for God to love you and to give you His grace.
That's right.
And for you to perform miracles. So, which gives me so much hope. All right. So,
well, Saint John Vianney is the patron saint of parish priests. also was treated like he was very he wasn't dull, of course, but he presented himself in a way that people didn't think he was that smart, and so he had a very hard time learning Latin. He was French. He had a very which is something, because Latin is a Romantic language like French, but he had a hard time learning it, and so they sent him off to the boonies basically, and he turned it around to great success, and is a great saint and patron
there you
saint
go.
for Greece.
Come on, yeah, no,
you know
absolutely.
What I said one time, okay, so not my idea, not my quote or whatever, but some political figure, reporter figure, or some famous person said that Americans face at every election the choice between the party of stupid or the party of evil.
That's right.
And it's funny because we all know who they have to be referring to, I guess. But I said, I said to my flock one day, I said that again. I didn't link it to any political party. Let everybody have that in their mind. But then I just said, remember, you can get to heaven stupid. You can't evil.
You can't when you're evil. That is a fact. That is a fact. Lord God. Yeah. It's funny because, and I'm sure this goes across like so many people. Like when you're younger, how smart you think you are, and maybe I'm just speaking. I should just be speaking for myself. I used to think I was so smart back then. Even though I would try to convince myself that no, we need to be a little bit more humble. I always thought I was smarter than everybody else in the room. And then looking back at almost every single one of those moments as an adult, I was the idiot in the room. I was the fish. I was the target the whole time. You know what I mean? And here I am. So it helps me with future interactions.
Well, it kind of reminds me of the parable where our Lord says, "Don't take the big place at table," right?
Yes.
Like if you come in, if you're fairly bright, but you come in with a certain sense of treating everybody in the room that they might be as smart, if not much smarter than you, then if it turns out, that you get put at the head of the table, well, then fine, that's where you belong. But if it turns out that you're not the smartest person in the room and you end up at the other end, well, that's fine too.
That's fine. You
get no disappointment, and you just want to be where God wants you to be. And it's funny. Every blessing has its cross, right? So intellect has its cross, and so does money, right? I mean, there's lots of great things that money can do, but it also comes with it some serious responsibility and temptation. Yeah. So, every good, it has its pain.
And knowledge and intellect, what was that? Was like the number one tool that that Satan, tempted us with.
It really is one of the more dangerous things. Especially if we're a little bright, right? Because if we're bright, when you look at it, who falls the hardest for some of these crazy psyops? It's the educated, smart people. Yeah. Because they trust authority and they admire other smart people. Well, in the back of their head, that's what's running. And so if you get someone who's really deceitful but has qualifications, well, they fall for it easier. So it's a double-edged sword.
Yeah, no, it's that indeed. All right, so Father Hagen says this is the first of many. I plan on writing another one soon called "The Layman's Guide to Dying from a Chaplain's Perspective."
So, layman's guide of ministering to the dying, Father, or layman's guide to
dying. Yeah, I that would be my guess. Yeah, the layman's guide to dying. Which, you know what? It's funny because I was kind of thinking about this. People need to be taught how to die in a way. Like, and it sounds weird, but
don't do it in Canada. They'll put you to sleep.
Yeah. They're like, oh yeah, come to our class. It's a one person classroom, but
Logan's Run.
Yeah. And again, when I used to have this crippling fear of death. Like really crippling fear. Like sometimes if I stayed up, it would like cause me like really great anxiety. And of course, this was when I was agnostic mostly, and now I don't want to sit.
You had plenty of reason to fear death.
Yeah, no. And I still have a healthy fear. I think more I have a healthy fear of the pain associated with death. I'm afraid of dying painfully, which is bad. Because I'm like, oh, okay, because if it's a real possibility, especially if things get really rough or worse. Sometimes I'll hear these stories of martyrdom and I'm like, I wouldn't have done. You know what I mean? Like I would have chickened out, or that
Well,
would
God
be my
doesn't.
fear.
He
That
he
would be my
doesn't
fear.
test us beyond. That's the comforting thing, and that could in a time of stress could hopefully give you some resolve too. That that he won't test you beyond your means. So
Yeah, but I mean, hey, like Peter chickened out.
that's true.
Peter chickened out at the
Yep.
moment, and and I say that with all due respect. I'm sorry that
No. There's no one's gonna get offended at that.
Yeah.
He literally chickened out since a rooster called him back.
Yeah, no, I know, right? Yeah, exactly. That's actually, hold on, that actually totally deserves another. There you go.
I know.
but yeah, no, he totally chickened out, but he came back stronger than ever, head of the church. Like,
Yep.
But yeah,
And he
I
had
think,
a humility. I mean, the neat thing about Peter, again, a topic for another time, but Peter took correction from his fellow apostles, and he and prayed about it and came back and made the decision. So I think he's a good model of church leadership in that sense. Is that yes, there is a collegial aspect, but ultimately there's one person in charge. There's a chain of command in the church, but they only a bad commander doesn't listen to the advice of his subordinates. So.
Amen.
So that's just it. I mean, a lot of the problems with Rome today are, these guys should be listening to a wider variety of voices that are trying to help them in loyalty. I think of that Father Wenedy, if I'm pronouncing his name right, who was the chief theologian for the U.S. Council of Bishops. He has a great story. I forget what publication it was published in, probably Crisis Magazine or whatever. But he
right.
He had quite a story about how he ended up speaking against Francis. He had to resign, I guess, but he ended up speaking against him. But it was not the same with Bishop Snyder. These men are both very, very respectful to the office, and they loyalty to both the office and the Pope and the Church demanded that they were truthful, and even if it meant the cost of their prestige in their offices, right? So that's just it. Athanasius found himself in exile, basically kicked out of the church 5 times. He's a saint, right? Saint Vincent Ferrer, backed an anti-pope, saint. Joan of Arc, condemned by the church as a heretic, saint. Burned,
right?
Yeah. So I mean, there's the Cristeros thrown under the bus by the church, saints, right?
Yeah.
So every once in a while, the church were promised in areas of faith and morals, the church won't err. But in terms of its administrative judgments, oh my goodness, it hasn't got anything right from, well, 2 things right in 2,000 years of circus, right? So it's, but that's in a sense a compliment because God kept it together. And really the only real rift, I mean, and we're going to agree to disagree with some of our viewers here, but I mean, my assertion is that, that situation lasted to around 2013 with the advent of Francis. And then we've got, now, my Say-Day friends, of course, say it's 1958, but there's some issues. And regardless, I mean, we all want to see what God sees. So if the Say-Days are right, I'll gladly admit it. And if the mainstreamers are right, then well, I don't. Again, my mind can't conceive of that. That's like, there's
like weird. Yeah.
I think I'm going to pronounce this wrong. Something called a tesseract. Do you know what I'm talking about,
The
Felix?
tesseract.
Yeah, it's like it's a 2 or 3D representation of a 4-dimensional form.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, it's a math thing, and I can't really get my head around that. And so it's like you can if you draw a cube, when you're a kid, you learn how to draw a little cube, the square, and then little diagonal lines, and then you make it. You can represent a 3-dimensional object in a 2-degree form, a 2-dimensional paper. But if you're going to represent a 4-dimensional object, my understanding is you have to do it sort of in 3 dimensions, which in turn can be imageless 2-dimension. And anyway, all this to say is that there's a lot of moving parts with this, with what's going on in the church right now, and it's just trying to get my head around it. There's just, from the perception of the lived day to day, there's just too many square circles. It's really hurting evangelization. too many square circles. Take all our theological dispute out of it for a moment. Can we at least concede that there's a crisis in who to trust right now in church world? Because there's just, well, how can there not be? Spin the wheel. What do we believe next week? So it's a bit of a crisis. Like, it's not. It used to be just, Latin Mass society versus the new people. Like, and that battle went on from the 60s, but now it's like we're arguing about basic doctrine. We can't even get the Vatican to acknowledge co-redemptrix. So,
you know what? It's like the week was so fast, I almost forgot about that.
yeah.
And I you know what? It almost feels, I obviously can't speak for everybody, but it almost feels like everyone else did, and it just kind of ignored them and are still like, who's really acknowledging this?
The net effect is that everybody's using it in their prayers, including me when I close this today.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Speaking of which, shall I, Felix, or is there any more comments there?
This is the last one. Actual Guide to Dying opening line is, you've received a terminal diagnosis.
Okay, good. Because that's what the title made me think of. But then I was thinking, okay, is he advising his priests or the lay people? Like, I mean, for like what the context is. Are they helping to minister, or are they experiencing death? So yeah, that sounds wonderful. That sounds wonderful.
Yeah. And I think that's it.
Thank you so much, guys, for joining us tonight. And you wouldn't believe that old devil. He's always after us. I could not get my camera working all day today until just before airtime. And but my angel or somebody took care of it. So there you go. But I thought I was going to have to postpone another day, and I hate doing that because we have people, of course, that are used to us on the same time. So anyway, God bless and protect you. And we'll end with a little prayer in the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Ghost. Amen. God, our Father, creator of all things, we praise and thank you for your gifts. We thank you for this time together. Always incline our hearts to your divine and holy will. Help us to see the world, ourselves, and the church as you wish us to see. Our Blessed Mother, mediatrix of all graces, pray for us. In the name of the Father, the Son, and Holy Ghost. Amen. And I shall see you next week. God bless you, and hope you have a good one.
God bless you all. Take care.